I can go into a market that I have no team built out if somebody else has a team built out in there, or if they're vertically integrated and they can handle it in-house. That opens up a lot of opportunities. Property managers, that's a big risk to the returns if they can't execute your plan. So I always start with how we're going to manage this thing, and there's more answers to that question than I had considered.
Hello, welcome into the Get Invested podcast. I'm Jordan, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host Matthias. We're excited today to talk to you about a little bit of investing, a little bit about life, and a little bit about shenanigans. So we're just going to dive right in. Matthias, what's up, man? How things going down there in Florida?
Going pretty good. We're in full as we record this. It's Halloween, so we're in full Halloween mode. Aaron this morning has his little skeleton pajamas on with a little skeleton mask. Pretty cute. And obviously we're gonna do neighborhood trick or treating. We got a gazillion kids in this neighborhood, so they're gonna go a little crazy here. 5-6 p.m. start getting out. So we're gearing up for that. But other than that, not too much. Everything else is focused on getting ready for the cruise.
Right, right. All right. Oh, such a tough life preparing for a Halloween and or a cruise.
Yeah.
Now, wait a second. I do have a serious question here. What is your okay, two things. One, what is your candy strategy as a purveyor during Halloween? Two, what is your candy collection strategy? What kind of tips have you given Ethan? I mean, I feel like Aaron probably just runs around and screams at things, but Ethan you know, might be starting to think about it.
He Ethan grabs a variety of stuff.
Okay.
He likes some of the I don't know, the fruit flavored candies and also the chocolate flavored candies. So he gets a good variety. Aaron just grabs whatever, a
Sure,
handful.
yeah.
But I take that back. He's just now started like looking through. We did like trunk or treat thing at the school, and he was like standing there like digging to find because he likes Smarties, the little Smarties
Mm-hmm.
that he can unroll. So he was digging around trying to find those. So maybe he'll be selective this year now too. I don't know, but in the past he hasn't really cared. Me, I'm not a big candy guy, just in general. So when I'm handing candy out, we like to just take whatever we can hide from the kids and use that and just give that away because we have so much an ungodly amount of candy that we still have left over from last year that we were trying to get them to eat before this year, and now we're already full back up, and it's not even Halloween until tonight. So I try to give away as much candy as possible. I don't whatever the kids bring home, I try to give it away.
Where is all the candy coming from? Why is there always just so much candy around?
Because they score so much on the previous year, and then there's the school had a big thing, the daycare had a big thing, and everybody did each of those things, and then there's been like little gatherings. So like everybody does these little things. So they've been gathering candy for the entire month of October. So we're already overflowing, and we haven't even gone trick or treating yet.
So this is just like a service industry currency economy, basically, where just money is just changing. Like the candy is currency, it's just changing hands as different people do
That's how
different
I view
things.
it. Yes,
You
pretty
don't. So
much.
I was asking, like maybe when you go to buy candy to give out, if you have like a certain way that you do it. But now I guess no, it's just here's recycled candy, kids.
Pretty much. I mean, every now and then we'll do it, but like literally for the last few years, we turned the lights off at the home and we're out walking around because we're both taking the kids. They're running around. I had to catch Aaron sprinting into traffic once last year. He just was in a full sprint out of the driveway. Car was coming by, and I was like full dad mode, grabbing him before he could run it. I think the driver saw him coming, but that's what I mean. It's a full time job. There's kids everywhere. There's people in golf carts, people in cars. So it's involved in our neighborhood.
Sounds like there may be so many kids in the neighborhood that like the actual people who are home to actually give the trick or treaters candy, if it files on like a few houses to like actually be there to give out candy because everyone else is
Yeah,
there's not enough supply.
there is, and it's interesting because you could tell like the best houses that we go to, they've got all the decorations and they're sitting out
Right.
with bowls. There'll be like somebody with hot chocolate or something. They'll all be sitting out, but it's like the older people who you could tell their kids are too old to, or either grown or gone, or too old to trick or treat, and that's who the best houses are. So it's like the parents with young kids are out, and the parents with older kids are the ones providing all the candy. Really, is how it works.
Really, they should like work out a system where they just collect all the candy from you guys that you want to get rid
I'd be
of,
fine with it. I'd be
and
fine
then
with
it's
it.
just like everyone's just. It's more about the activity, obviously, than the candy. So this would work perfectly. And
To
then
me, 100% it is. Yeah.
small kids would just be like, "I got all this candy." They probably would never notice that like the amount of candy they got never changed. Like it did not
They have
accumulate at all.
they have no idea that we just keep dumping that bowl out every time they fill it up. They have no idea. Yeah.
It's like reminds me of like classic cartoons where one person is like, one guy will shovel a thing and then the person will come behind and like put it back in the hole.
Yeah.
And Looney Tunes, I think it turned like it had a milestone the other day. Anyway, uh, that's what it makes me think of is Looney Tunes. Well, our neighborhood is like maybe there's like a high schooler, maybe like one of them. I don't know. It's a lot of young professionals or all like older people who have like older kids or just don't have any, or maybe a couple who have like really really tiny. But our neighborhood's not too big, so I guess they probably go. There's like really huge neighborhoods right down the road, kind of we're adjacent to, so I think everybody goes over there. It's like nice and pretty, tree lined and stuff. But yeah, I definitely turn the light off because we don't, I don't eat candy either, so we don't have it around. And if we do, I'm gonna eat it. But I sound like such a Grinch. But we just don't have. I mean, we're right on a main road. It's just not. We're just not that in
Yeah.
that area. My recent. I would like to talk to you about something. I want to see if you have experienced something like this. So like that old trope, that joke, like the dad or a mom. I mean, it's usually a dad, but like a parent gets really excited about something small. Like, man, I hit like every light on the way home, or like, there was nowhere at any line, nobody in any of the lines when I was shopping anywhere, or like, those kind of small things. Well, the other day I realized here's why teenagers and young people roll their eyes at this, and why you have to be old to appreciate it. It's because you just haven't done those things enough as a young person to realize how nice it is to just get a brief respite from like the adulting. Like it just went a little more fluidly today, right? There was a little less
Yeah.
friction. That's what it is. It's like I had to do it no matter how tedious and time consuming and how hard it may be. And this time it just was actually kind of easy. So that's super exciting, right? Well, here's an example of that, and also proof that I think I'm living right. It's a little vacation in domesticity, if you will. Now you won't not be able to commiserate with this one, but maybe the feeling. So I've never been able to grow much facial hair. This is a known fact,
Sure.
right? So I've never had
Yes.
to use anything but electric razor. Well, I realized the other day, it really kind of dawned on me that I had been using a razor for, I don't know, maybe nigh on a decade. And at this point, it was like literally had been for almost a year, kind of scraping me and not doing a very good job. Now, of course, I changed the razor top, but it just was getting old and it was not doing a good job to the point I was like avoiding shaving. So I finally got around to buying a new one. And, it wasn't like, it was like a series too old and a series down from the top. So it was like $80, not a big deal. But it was so far advanced from what I was using that now every single time I shave, I'm like, like it doesn't hurt. This is amazing. It actually shaves everything. So just like every time I have to shave, I'm like, oh yeah. Like so I put it off so long. And there's people been out there assiduously working on shaving technology that now, man, it's just a little vacation every time I go to shave now. Just so easy. So easy.
Good for you.
So yeah, exactly. That's the small things you got to latch onto because you're gonna have to keep shaving. You know, like that's the thing. That
Well,
is the thing.
not me.
This is the well, you could insert something else there, right? Cleaning, whatever. The kids don't understand what it's like to do something for 30 years versus like they've only done it for like a year. That
Yeah.
is the
No, I
key.
get it. It makes sense. And for the record, I mean, I shaved, every day for a 14-year career actually in college too. So I get it. I too am aware of and I had razors that I tried electric for a while, and then I went back. I'd go back and forth because it was like, you know, certain parts of my face would handle it just fine, but then other parts of like my neck would just get really scratched up or get ingrown hairs and stuff. It was terrible. I hate shaving. That's why I won't do it anymore.
Well, I mean, that's just not an option for me. Thankfully, I don't have to shave as much as you had to because it just grows fast. But there's like one little spot up here, and then like there's some here, and then this grows in and goes blonde, and then I look like a poster I don't want to be a part of. Just you got to move on. So, anyways, that was my adulting, old person, and the wisdom that comes with age. I realized is what makes you know that you're also old, and then you don't care about it. That's like the best thing about getting old is you don't care. One of the best things about teaching was telling a joke that you thought was funny and they didn't. Like it was even that much funnier because they didn't like it. All right, well, let's just jump into some things that everyone should like if they know what they're talking about, and that is we are today gonna do something a little bit different where we're actually gonna do what we call like a deep dive on a particular investment. One of the reasons we're doing this is this one actually recently closed and completely locked up and is ready to move to operational phase entirely. And it is one that was at the beginning of kind of the new phase of CVI. And it also speaks to a few topics that Matthias and I have been bouncing back and forth about, talking about what it means to be a capital raiser versus, other types of roles in the GP and how people could understand kind of the different structures of management. So we're going to just kind of talk through this investment. It was what's called Viera at Whitemarsh in Savannah, Georgia. We're going to just talk through that and hopefully explain some things that help you better understand real estate investment and maybe you reach the level of wisdom of my shaving story. All right, Matthias, take it away. Talk to us about how we came to be a part of Viera at Whitemarsh.
Well, actually, and I learned this about halfway through myself, but it's actually Whitmarsh. It's pronounced Whitmarsh Island. Is the island where it is, and I learned that after making the exact same mistake. But it's so
there is an E there. I would like everyone to know. It is spelled
100%.
The same way that I am described racially.
You are very white. Yeah. So basically, it came about like it's kind of a long story, but a good story, and it's kind of a cool success story. But basically, I've talked about this on LinkedIn. We've talked about it on podcasts, but like this year, I kind of dedicated to growth for CVI. And I knew to do that, I would have to start putting myself out there regularly, often. So started doing LinkedIn, and this is before like the viral Chiefs post that kind of blew up for me. But basically, I've been talking military stuff, my reasons for investing and all that. And a guy who had been following me for a week or a couple of weeks kind of reached out and said, "Hey man, I really like your stuff. We should just jump on a call." And I was like, "This is the year of growth. I'm saying yes to everything." So yeah, sure. So we jumped on a call and talked. His name was Marv.
Is it like that movie Yes Man? Are you Jim Carrey in this story?
It kind of was. It definitely jumped into my head as I was like, "Hey, Matthias, you can't say no to anything, while you're in the growth mode." So I was like, "Okay." So we jumped on the call, hit it off. He's a former Navy guy. We have so many of the same philosophies and stuff. So it was cool. And on that call, he was like, "Hey man, actually, there's some other people I think you might be interested in meeting." So we talked for a while, and then he was like, "Yeah." And then later on, he set up a call. A couple of weeks later or something, we kept the conversation going. But then a couple of weeks later, he goes, "Hey, jump on this call with this other team. I'd like you to meet them because they found a deal and they're looking for help to raise capital for it. Pretty good deal." So basically, building that relationship with Marv, he said, "Hey man, I think I know I can connect you with another outfit that's doing all in the same vein, really similar philosophies, the same style of investing." Connected me, hit it off with those guys. They're sharing with me that, hey, we're working on getting under contract on this deal over in Savannah. And so I ended up I was like, "Hey, let me look at the deal. I'm interested because I like all the connections that we've been making, and I really really liked the team over there." But basically, they handed me all their underwriting, and they underwrite the same way I do, very conservative, using basically the absolute baseline of what we think we can do. We think we're going to do a lot better, but they underwrote to the baseline. and they had basically found an asset at a really good price, and I was pretty blown away by the numbers. So effectively, that's how this the connection came to be, and that was over the course of like 2 or 3 months, or like April to May, June timeframe.
Yeah. So now, actually, maybe I don't know this part of the story. You were actually talking to them about something completely different, and then it moved on to this one, or you were just talking in general? Because Marv is part of the team that we worked with at Viera, or on Viera, let me
Yeah,
say.
yeah. So Marv and I were talking in general, and he had worked with the other team, with the Lake City team, on multiple other of their properties already. So he was like, "Hey, man, you should meet this team that I've worked with in the past that I really like." So basically, I was like, "Cool, I'll meet them." I'm always down. I'm saying yes, right? So I met with them, and that was at the time they were getting this property under contract. They'd been chasing it for a long time, but they were like finalizing the contract as I met them. So they knew they were going that deal. Marv didn't necessarily know he was doing that deal yet, and I obviously had no idea about it. So the timing was just crazy how that all worked out. So having known Marv for a month or two at that time, that I got presented that deal in like May, end of May, early June, started digging in underwriting, and it was like, okay, wow, that's this is some real potential.
Yeah, it's been, even though I've been involved, I guess I'm just, something's wrong here in my head, but even if I've been involved from basically the beginning of this whole, let's get you out there, get your stuff out there, get your philosophies out there, get your excitement, and you get your investments out there and stuff. Let's put your brand out there. It still kind of blows my mind that it was as simple as like, here's what I've done, and someone else is like, let's talk on the phone, and then off to the races, right? Now, of course, there's a lot more to that, and
Yeah,
everyone likes
100%.
to roll their eyes at networking, right? And like, how to win friends and influence people, or whatever that famous like book is, and people are like, oh yeah, they're networking, so it's just a business thing, and it is. But and I love it's fun to make fun of, because I think there are satirical versions that are famous for everyone to think about, but it's really just like, hey, you can help me do this thing that I'm trying to do. Like, I mean, I don't think you listen to it, but I listen to the Smartless podcast, and they're literally like, all these people make such a big deal out of auditions. And they're like, yeah, auditions can go badly. But literally what they're doing is they're like, can you solve this problem for me? When you come into the room, can we cast you as this and forget about it? Like, in that idea of like, they're just looking for someone to solve their problem. It's like,
Yeah,
that's just
sure.
such a you know what I'm saying? Like, that's such a different mindset of like, hey, I can go in there and solve this problem. Not like, I hope they pick me, but like, I'll try to help them. And that's what really networking
Yeah,
is. Like, if you had gotten in the hall and been an asshat with Marv, he would have been like, well, great talking to you, Matthias. But that's not what happened, of course.
yeah, 100%. I'd say that if you and it goes along with like actually listening to people and paying attention
Hmm.
as well, because if you're listening, I'm listening to what you're trying to do, and I'm like, in the back of my mind, I go, hey, I think I know a way to help him do that. And if you're
Hmm.
kind of willing to do that with everybody you meet, well, everybody of quality, don't be willing to help a thief as he's cleaning out your neighbor's house. That probably wouldn't go very well, but you get my point. Like,
Yeah.
do your best to help everybody that you meet, and it comes back. People, you get connected with the same like-minded people, and then now you're off to the races because everybody's working together. Then
Yeah, I mean, like, of course, it's a little bit more involved than just like, I know that's why everyone makes fun of it. It's like, oh, you both went out for drinks, and all of a sudden, like, $1 billion deal was made. It's like, well, no, that's not,
yeah,
no,
right.
not exactly. But you find people who are trying to do similar things, who have similar goals and similar ways of going about them, and you're like, well, here's what I can add, and that's the best thing, right? It's not, here's how I can do it. It's, here's what I can add to the team, right? Like, I'll have my, and we're going to get a little bit more into like the team aspect of that, because I think we've thrown that around a few times, like, oh, there's the team, and it's like, well, what are the pieces of the team, that, because a lot of times there's all these other things happening in the background, and you're the point man that the average investor may not know about everything else. But yeah, I just, it's one of those things where you realize that it is particularly simple in theory, but complicated every single specific time. It's just one, kind of like a lot of things in life. Obviously, it wasn't easy to do, but it was easy to get. It wasn't easy to do, but it was, once you got to a certain point, it was easy to see, here's how we should move forward.
Sure.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, so
Now,
to dig in a little
yeah,
deeper into kind of the details of the property. So what stuck out to me initially when they first handed me the deal, one, their underwriting, which I obviously was going to do my own underwriting to bounce off of theirs to make sure that I got to the same general numbers. So as I was going through that, the things that stuck out to me the most is one, the location. It is the best location in the city of Savannah. That Whitmarsh Island is basically, you cannot expand any growth in that island, and this is all the investors that I talk to know this. There's no more, you can't build any more apartments on that island. It's all like nice neighborhood. There's nice Publix, grocery stores. There's all the little local points and anchors that you would want in a neighborhood without the ability to expand that neighborhood at all. So it's like, hey, and Savannah's growing like crazy. There are all kinds um, of industries growing. Ports. It's
yeah,
huge
they're
industrial
expanding
place
the port. Yeah.
with an extremely diverse population of like growth and job diversity, basically. So that you're not tied to any one industry. It's like really strong market. So I knew that already, but I don't have a team in Savannah, so I hadn't been looking actively for properties in Savannah. That's the third thing that I really liked, is that these guys were vertically integrated, meaning they had hired their own property managers and have an arm of their company that is the property management arm, basically. So they had some professional property managers that they hired off of, that were basically regional managers for national property management companies, and they hired them on to run their property management division in house. So having that kind of experience, it'd be like having Heather and Chamberlain working for Capital Velocity Investments. That kind of and even more experience, frankly, because Chamberlain and Heather are still relatively young. They're like my age, maybe a little bit older, but the team they got over at Lake City is another 10, 15 years of experience. So it's like, okay, that's awesome. That's awesome to have. That the level of expertise can't really be matched. So those two things, and then they also had a very strong track record of how they had operated, they bought, executed, sold for a long period of time. That team over there, so that got me over the hump of going, okay, everything on the it was enough for me to, I knew I wanted to invest in a deal personally, 100%. I was sold, but I needed to get over the hump, a few more humps, to where I'd be like, okay, am I going to try to bring my investors onto this? Because I have a higher level of yeah, there's the island right there. I have a higher
Yeah, I was just
level of
thought I might as well show it. Yeah, there's Whitmarsh.
a higher bar for what I'll bring to my investors and what I invest in. I understand it a lot easier, and I'm comfortable
Mm.
taking those kind of risks much more so than I am allowing my investors to take those risks. So, but basically, the what really closed it for me on deciding to take it to my investors and joining the team as to help raise capital for that property was the fact that it's legitimately investor grade, which is an actual term in real estate. It's investment grade asset. Basically, it met the threshold of what large institutional buyers and funds will hold. They're not going to hold an 80 unit asset in a small town. They're just not going to do it. That's just not, you know what I'm saying? So it had size, it had market, it had um and it had quality, vintage. All of it was investment grade. So that I knew that I would have to be doing this for another 5 to 10 years before I could get access for my investors to this level of an investment. This is something that hedge funds would buy. Hedge funds do buy. We bought it from a hedge fund, and having that kind of asset is very hard to do. It's not usually the little guy getting access to that type of investment. So at that point, I was like, all right, I think I owe it to my investors, whether or not, because it's going to be a high minimum. We're raising $21.5 million,
Hmm.
so we're not going to be able to let people in for 10,000. But I can't pass up this opportunity to pass this on to my investors. So that's what ended up making the decision for me, I'd say.
It does seem, how I love to focus on words, and I just put up the growth graphic because you were talking about how it was exploding in all these different ways. But it does seem interesting to me, this determination of quote unquote investment grade. I mean, that terminology, it just seems to speak to exactly what we're trying to do, honestly, right? Because I don't want people to be
Yeah.
confused. Like, you can invest in lots of things, but that's kind of that's where we're at. We're trying to be in that space that isn't what everybody thinks investment is, but can be investments. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Like our where
I
we're
think so.
aiming our syndications at is that okay, there's actually other ways to do it than the way that you might think of, which is like, oh yeah, hedge funds or big firms or, people that like just move a lot of cash around, VCs, stuff like that. It's like, and so the fact that, I mean, I know we're now a part of one, but it's just interesting that even the term kind of speaks to exactly the thing we're kind of fighting against, I guess. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, there's a term called like in the financial industry, investment grade bonds, right? And that's like, hey, these are deemed safe enough that we classify them as, their credit rating is such that we'll classify them as investment grade. In this, it's the same with real estate, right? Like the risk is low enough because the market's strong and the property itself is big enough and strong enough that it would be considered investment grade. And that is the access that I'm trying to get to bring down to the lowest level with the company. So yeah, exactly. That's
So investment grade is not any particular parameters. It's an assessment in the moment.
I wouldn't say in the moment. I say it's an assessment across all the parameters that we talked about: size, location, and performance level of an asset that it would be considered investment grade. So I mean, it could be anywhere in the country. It could be, well, I'd say not anywhere, but in a big enough market, in a typically they're like a downtown Dallas or in Austin or something with very strong growth, gazillions of people, and will remain that way for a long time. And then the asset itself has very strong performance. It's not in a low income area, which is just traditionally riskier. You know what I mean? It's like it checks all the
Yeah, yeah,
boxes.
sure. Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, basically.
And who is this that making just at who is this that's making this distinction? Is it the SEC? I mean, because they're the ones that used to do the AAA, triple B, all that stuff, but we all know how that got a little bit shaky.
Yeah. This is the. It's a good question. I don't really know who classifies it that way. It's basically, I mean, the fact that it was owned by an institution, a hedge fund before us, is checks the box, I guess. But I mean, to classify it as, I don't know where you would get that. Probably from like a big brokerage house like CoStar, or one of those aggregators of data
Hmm.
on like multifamily and stuff like that. So they would have like a tiers of levels of it. They'd have literally an investment grade bracket for the big markets, the big properties, that kind of thing.
It's kind of crazy to think about. I mean, I know that Savannah is a mid-size, I guess, city. It's not a big market, but that it has the growth to reach that, even no matter how nice the property is. Just people wouldn't normally think of that. I mean, it is the port of, I think people don't realize that that's the port of Georgia. That's not just like a random port. Like it's one of the biggest ports on the eastern seaboard. And they've expanded it. So, did you ever meet Greg, my roommate and neighbor when I was at Georgia? He actually at some point worked on a project at the port of Georgia as I think for a little while, trying to help when they were growing it, doing landscaping stuff. Yeah. And then Steven, my brother-in-law, he's worked at the Port of Virginia. His company actually helps maintain all the systems of the Port of Virginia.
Nice.
They're kind of crazy. I don't think people realize what kinds of operations they are unless they've seen them. Like the
Yeah,
amount of machinery
there's a
and
lot going on there.
logistics. Yeah, exactly. Which, of course, as you said, the diversity of the area, there's a lot going on there. But then, like downtown's like this quaint little, you know, historic place where famously you can walk around with a drink.
Yep. There's financial institutions there. There's the big army base. There's everything there. Yep.
There was one of these slides that I wanted to bring your attention to, just very quickly. Where'd it go? Where is this slide? There it is. Now, I know that Savannah's at the top of this, obviously speaks strongly of Savannah, but I do want to look at the one right below Savannah. Just quickly give a shout
Yep.
out to my
Asheville.
hometown, Asheville, North Carolina, the second on this list of Southeast rent growth leaders. Now, depending on who you are and what you're trying to do, that could be a good thing or a bad thing. But as far as places that are growing in the South, Asheville was booming. It's had a little bit of a setback recently, so I wanted to give it a shout out. It is funny though. I have like either Greenville, South Carolina. I can't believe it's 13th. That place is awesome. It's gotten a lot better. Of course, Athens, spent a lot of time there. Just mentioned it.
Yeah.
And then Baton Rouge. Just this right here, Baton Rouge being on this list must have been after I was there for school because no, was not was not happening. Anywho, Charlotte's all the way down here at 23rd. That's okay. We don't need to grow too much. Anywho, all right. I just wanted to give a shout out to a few of my homesteads. Now let's so I mean it was a 208 unit, right? We took it down. It was raising 21. We took it down for I think it was 39 was the price plus capex stuff. And your target was 2, right?
Well, my initial target to be part of the team was raising $1 million. Was going to be raising $1 million. I told him I could. I was pretty sure I could do. I'm pretty sure I could do $1 million. I wasn't willing to. I knew I was going to try for 2, but I wasn't. I wasn't going to promise them then because I didn't know I had that. If enough of my investors would have that kind of capital, because we set the investment minimum at 100,000. That was more than double my highest. That might have been 4 times the highest amount I'd ever set as a minimum before.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot. That was you were like, that was part of that nervousness, right?
Yeah.
Because once you're about that entry price, and then we ended up at 2.3, I think. So
yeah, right at 2.3 is what I ended up raising, which is cool. Is great. We were growing the business and growing the investor list pretty well because at some point in there was when that Chiefs thing happened, and I had a whole bunch of people reach out that had learned more about me from the post, read the post, found out about me, read into it, and then reached out and wanted to get into investing. So I was like, okay, well, let's push it and see how far we can go, and we ended up raising million, getting a good 24, 25 maybe investors in, which was, or maybe even more than that. It was pretty cool getting them access to this. I was very glad I had made that decision.
So I mean, we've already, if anybody, for the like 3 people that have listened to most of our episodes, that Matthias started his Finn bromance with Vivek, excuse me, through the Chiefs post. This isn't exactly that, but I was wondering, like, was this something that you had ever thought about doing? Like the jumping on as a capital raiser? Was this even something in like really in any kind of way a concrete plan? Yeah.
I didn't know that people did it, to be honest with you, until this year. Obviously, people have been doing it for a long time because some people just have a bunch of financial contacts, or maybe they work in a family office, or just know a lot of high net worth individuals. It's typically that type of person that will go be a capital raiser because they can bring, $1 million, $2 million, $4 million to a deal worth of investors, and they bring it on. I'm a little bit different in that I'm trying to start with beginner investors, so it often times doesn't make sense for. I mean, my first capital raises were 320,000 and then 400,000 total of the capital raise. So, a 21 million that wasn't going to help a lot in a $21 million raise. So it hadn't really occurred to me. I've led everything that I've done, and I was the one who had the experience in the property management, like, and was going to manage the properties and the assets. So it never really occurred to me. But as I said, this is the year of growth and reaching out and saying yes. So I kind of was digging into it. I was like, this kind of makes sense because if I have to do everything myself, like I said, I'm not going to be able to get to this asset for years to where I would have a big enough investor pool to be able to take it down. And frankly, so we did 21.5 million total that me and the team raised for the purchase, but of those, we still only had 35. This is the first time I've ever seen it maxed out. 35 non-accredited investors, which is pretty wild. But then again, mostly accredited investors are capable of writing 100K checks or more. So, I mean, there was some big hitters who were doing, 2-3 million chunks, from some of the other capital raisers that had those relationships. But that was one day I'd like to go I'd like to provide investment for somebody who can cut a couple million check to me. That would make my life super easy. But that's not who I'm trying to help. Basically, I'm trying to help people get to that point.
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, so lots of things come out of that for me. One, I think what what it seemed like to me in working through this, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but Lake City's not taking it down by themselves either. I mean, you're not the only one they brought on, right? That's like kind of that goes back to the networking thing and the structure thing where you can build each of these as its own entity. They're all their own LLCs. They're all their own little things, right? They're not. There doesn't need to be a specific continuity of how they're done. And it seems to me, looking at I don't want to put, maybe I shouldn't put up all their pictures, but looking at Marv and Victoria and all of this, it's another way in kind of like a coalition came together. And I think that's something that maybe was a broadening of horizons, as well as the sheer horizon of like, hey, we can be working in things as far away as Savannah and South Carolina, and maybe further.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it was a great proof of concept for me because I mean, as I'm going forward through finishing out this year, trying to do it strong, I have multiple partnerships that we're working on stuff with in similar aspects, and it's like, hey, this is a way to. I don't have to be the only. I don't have to find every deal that I take to my investors. If a deal is good enough and I'm invited on, that works for me. I mean, I'm going to vet has the overall final say on what happens with the property. I'm going to vet those people very carefully. But the fact of the matter is that I don't need to have ultimate control in order to accomplish the mission of CVI, which is connecting as many people as possible with the investment grade. Not as I don't want to say specifically investment grade, but with really strong investment opportunities that they wouldn't have access to. I can do that without being the guy in charge and finding every individual deal myself and having Matthias Wilson signed on the contract. So
Yeah, and I mean, I
it was
think it's
very eye
cool
opening.
that, yeah, I mean, it goes back to a different kind of diversity of offering, right? That there's, it can just expand the possibilities of what CVI can participate in and also what we can offer. So, I mean, yeah, I agree. It is an interesting kind of, it was a reconfiguration, I guess, of just kind of like the whole approach. I mean, because now we're in ones where we are, we're just on somebody else's project, or you're building the coalition yourself. There's all types of ways, and it is very cool. Now, you it sounded like to me that you started to say, um, our newly minted and solidified mission. Was that where you were going? We aim to provide opportunities in real estate investing and its generational wealth building benefits to everyone, especially those who likely would not have access without our help. I think that's what you were referring to
That's
there.
I don't remember saying it exactly like that, but I kind of like that.
There might have been small tweaks after your last draft. So I want to ask, I guess for those of you, I did explain, but this is pictures of Viera right here. There, I I don't think this thing has one of the prettiest pictures, which is the one with all the Spanish moss just hanging
Yeah,
off of
yeah,
all the
the most
trees.
Savannah picture of all time. Yeah, for sure. I took that one
Now,
myself. Actually.
if you want to see a stylized version of that, you can go to capitalvelocityinvestments.com. It is our landing page. But I was going to ask, besides just this kind of coalition model and just rethinking the way in which to approach how to come by deals and projects and how to be involved in them, I do want to ask you about another way in which maybe your thinking was reconfigured. But before I do that, the last thing I wanted to mention on all of the things that you just said is, you were talking about, hey, it would be great if you could have somebody write you a check for 2 million, but that's not ultimately who you're trying to help. I think the vision becomes, right, maybe different divisions. Haha, see what I did there with vision and division? Anyways, just because you're getting one doesn't mean you have to leave the other one behind. Anyways,
100%.
all right.
Yep.
So yeah, so I guess the other thing I'm wondering about is, did it change? What did you learn? How did it change your approach to like market research, and how to look at markets? What kinds of things did you learn in that way as we look to expand ourselves into different ones?
It did a little bit. It kind of, I'd say it helped It helps me understand a bit more about how a way to tackle the property management problem. I suppose to me, I was always like, okay, I'm going to have to build a dedicated property manager. It'll have to be an established professional company that's been there a long time, third party. But it kind of opened my eyes to, like, the vertically integrated teams. I can also go into a market that I have no access to because I don't have a team built out. If somebody else has a team built out in there, or if B, they're vertically integrated and they can handle it in house, that that opens up a lot of opportunities that I had previously. My going in argument is I need to have a team built on the ground before I'll go invest. That's just something I've learned. Is I've at the very beginning we had to fire multiple property managers and dealt with ones that it's like that's the that's a big risk to the returns. Basically, is if they can't execute your plan, then you can have the best plan in the world. So I always start with property management. How are we going to manage this thing? And
Hmm.
there's more answers to that question than I had considered. So that's probably the best way I learned. I mean, I know how to look at job growth, and I know how to look at industries and stuff that I had down pretty cold. It's the different ways to skin a cat in terms of the property management problem.
So that was the expertise that you're speaking about earlier with people who had so much more like time in the game, as it were. That
Hmm.
was the eye-opening part. Okay, yeah, yeah. So I think what you're kind of saying is that if there's a market where you think, oh, here's a pretty good deal, rather than trying to establish necessarily like, okay, this is the partnership I have with a property management, you can find someone else to bring into the deal who has that rather than a
Yeah, exactly.
one-to-one. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Either in their market or in the market I'm looking at, or in another market, they're vertically integrated, where they could provide. They have the in-house expertise to hire and train someone in their own system to manage it. Yeah, that's exactly it.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, you kind of have like a triangulation there. You're just looking for people who, again, right? It goes back to what we were talking about. They can solve a problem. Obviously, they're getting something out of it too, but right? That's just talking and trying to solve problems. All right. Well, it's very exciting that it's now moving to the operational phase. I'm personally looking forward to being a part of that ride, seeing how it moves forward. Is there anything else you really wanted to talk about with Viera that we've missed so far? I mean, we've gotten the
No,
pronunciation right. So I was just going
I'd
to
say
checklist.
the only thing I would add is that we're I can give an update on the operations. I mean, it's operating well. We dodged really any significant damage from hurricanes, which have been a have been a thing this year. So
Hmm.
no significant damage. Operations are going well. We're beating projections. I was just looking at the numbers from it was either August or September. I was going over the numbers, and we're already beating our income revenue projections that we had kind of progressed out for the first 6 months. So we're rocking and rolling. I think we're going to be able to make distributions on time. We told investors 6 months. We may even beat it. We closed back in July, August. I can't remember. I think it was the end of July was when we closed, and I think we're well on pace to start handing things out. Maybe even by the end of the year.
Yeah, I think it was mid to late July actually when it closed, and started kind of moving into the new
Yeah, and
management,
there's
etc.
we should say there's two different closings. There's closing on the
Right,
property.
right,
We
right,
actually control the property, and then there's closing on the investment opportunity, which is a different. It's we had to wait a long
right.
time for a bunch of money. With $21 million, we had enough. We had more than enough to close early on, so we closed, and we just the rest of the money trickled in. So we finally just recently got the last few little lingering self-directed IRAs trickled in, and now we're officially all the money is where it's supposed to be. It's done, closed, and no more people could get in. There's no more
Yeah, the
space.
close of
All that.
of the investment period. Exactly. If you want, yeah, look, guys, if you're wanting to invest with us, we'll take your money. We'll find a good spot for it, but it's not going to be Viera. Sorry, guys, that one's done.
Yeah, that's true.
Also, if you heard that phrase self-directed IRA and you don't know what that's about, make sure to reach out. Comment in this post, DM Matthias. Check out his LinkedIn next week. It's probably going to be prominently figured there. It's a big thing that we're big proselytizers of the self-directed. IRA. All right. Well, I think that probably does it for us per usual. If you are listening and subscribe, like, 5-star, restack, retweet, re-X, whatever a shout out, whatever you want. Please, please, if you have some comment of any sort, we are more than happy to hear from you. And if you got any questions or things you're wondering about, hit us up about those as well. Thanks for hanging out with us this week, and we look forward to being with you next week. I'm Jordan. That's Matthias. We'll catch you later.
My name's Johnny, and it might be a sin, but I'll take your bet you're gonna regret, cause I'm the best there's ever been. Johnny rising up in bold, playing middle hard. That's Tuscaloosa in Georgia, and the devil gives the cards. If you win, you get the shining fiddle made of gold. If you lose, the devil gets your soul. Devil opened up his case now, and he said, I'll start the show. Fire flew his fingertips as he roused up his bow. And he pulled that bow across the strings, it made an evil hiss. A band of demons joined in, and it sounded something like this. Finished and Johnny said, you're pretty good, old son. Sit down in that chair there, let me show you how it's done. He played fire on the mountain, run, boys, run. Devil's in the house of the rising sun. Shaking in the red man, picking out dough. Dreams the dog by no child, no. No. Devil bowed his head now because he knew that he'd been beat. He laid that golden fiddle down on the ground at Johnny's feet. Johnny said, devil, just come on back if you ever want to try it again. I done told you once, you son of a bitch, I'm the best there's ever been.